Hey, here we are without the introduction. This is the Start Spreading the News Yankee show. A few minutes late, we had some technical difficulties. EJ Fagan will be joining us in just a moment. I have to make sure I get EJ the link. So as I talk to you right now, I'm just going to send him a quick email so that he can join the show. And then we are going to be talking Yankee baseball. I apologize for the delay. And here we go, talking Yankee baseball. I'd like to remind everybody that the Start Spreading the News program is brought to you by Artemisia Publishing, a great publisher out of New Mexico and the good old USA, with a variety of genres of great books that are available coast to coast, wherever books are sold. They have great books, including a number of books written by me. And this, of course, is, let's get the title up there, the Start Spreading the News Yankee show. So EJ and I are talking Yankees baseball. And we just started a conversation that we're going to have to start from the top again. EJ, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I pushed the wrong button and didn't have any of the programs linked up. So we are now live on Roku and Facebook and all the.
Hello, everybody.
Yep. So we're good. We've got an audience and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, EJ, so I was asking you, what do you think about Walker Buehler if the Yankees were going to go out and get Walker Buehler?
Yeah. So here's my take on Walker Buehler. And I think look, I like Walker Buehler as a pitcher. He looked really good in the World Series against the Yankees. Had a pretty bad season coming off of Tommy John surgery, but nothing unexpected, right? It's not like he was throwing 10 miles an hour slower than he had previously. And I think that, kind of like a Jack Flaherty, he's going to want to take a one-year deal, rebuild his value, go back out on the market and get a big contract. And that worked really well for Jack Flaherty. And sometimes it works out for pitchers, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think the Yankees are in a good spot to take advantage of that. The Yankees have 6 starters on the roster. They would have to trade 2 guys to make room for Walker Buehler. Buehler's going to want a guaranteed spot in the rotation to do this. And I'm not sure that Buehler is better than the guys that they would trade away. And Buehler might be better, right? He could be the best pitcher on this roster. He's a really talented player, but he's not guaranteed, right? He's coming off an injury, and we don't know what he's going to be. I think Buehler's going to go to a non-contender. He's going to go do what Flaherty did. Flaherty went to the Tigers, and he's going to, get traded at the trade deadline. I think that's probably what you would expect out of that pitcher. Yep.
Yeah, you're going 5 starters: Cole, Heel, Rodon, Schmidt, Cortez. Yes.
And Stroman, I think Stroman's tradable, right? So you'd have to trade one of the Schmidt, Cortez, etc. group in addition to Stroman.
And then you're hoping, really, and this is what you said before the technical difficulty, so I'm stealing your own words, giving them back to you. But basically, it's unlikely that Walker Buehler is going to be better than whoever that other guy is that they're going to get rid of, right, whether it be Nestor or Clark Schmidt.
Right, exactly, right? So well, the thing is, there's a chance that he's a lot worse. And that's the problem, right? Is that there's a chance that he's Severino 2 years ago, right? Just non-playable. And all those other guys, except for maybe Stroman, but I think even including Stroman, they're all very playable. In fact, some of them are pretty good or have the chance to be pretty good. Walker has the chance to be great, and he has the chance to be really bad. And I don't think the Yankees have the depth to just kind of take that bet. I think that, you can imagine them signing up Blake Snell, Corbin Burns, a guaranteed upgrade in the rotation. I could totally see them doing that. I just don't see them getting, you compared him to Corey Kluber a while back, right? Like one of those types of guys for this roster just doesn't make sense right now for the Yankees, especially because money is scarce, right? I don't know what Walker wants. It's probably not nothing. It's probably $15 million or something. And I would much, much, much rather spend that on an infielder, on relief pitching, right? The places where the Yankees really need to improve.
Another name that's out there is old friend Jonathan Loaisiga.
Yeah.
What do you think of him?
Sure. Why not? I look, Loaisiga had Tommy John, right? So he's not due back till middle to late next year. I think it would be very normal for the Yankees, some other team, to give him a 2-year deal where he doesn't get paid much next year, but he gets paid a little more, maybe with a team option the year after or something like that. That makes sense to me. Look, I like Loizaga. I think it was very clear that he was playing injured for the last couple of years. Actually, if you look at like his strikeout rate, like it just went to zero.
It was terrible, right? Yeah, he didn't strike anybody out.
But he was throwing 98. Like I don't really know what was going on, but it did not shock me one bit when he went down with an injury. So I Arene with Loizaga makes sense. The Yankees know him. He knows the Yankees. And I think he's got ceiling, right? He's the kind of guy that he could come back and be elite very, very reasonably. And you know, there's not a lot of relief pitchers who kind of have control and velocity the way that kind of peak Loizaga did. That said, you know, relief pitching is fickle. Loizaga had like one season where he was really good. I mean, maybe a season and a half. That is that's dangerous, right? Like that tells me, like, you know, you don't know if he's any good at all. Like he doesn't have much more of a track record than Ian Hamilton. When he was really good, he was one of the best relievers in baseball, but that was for one season.
All right, here's another name, high-end relief pitcher, Mason Miller. I keep reading things. Number one, do you think he's going to be traded? And do you think what I hear about Mason Miller is a lot of people say he is an injury waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And
well, he's got a torn UCL, I believe.
Right. Now, so did Tanaka, and somehow Tanaka had an injury and he somehow managed never to get hurt with it. But
Mason Miller throws 103.
Yes, and you're going to have to give up a lot, I would assume. Is that a risk worth taking?
I wouldn't. Look, I think he's got injury risk. He's a relief pitcher. I think he's a little overrated. I like Mason Miller. I'd love to have him on my team. His ERA last year was, I just brought this up, it's like 2.6. Right? Which is like, 2.49, which is good, right? Better than a lot of players, not better than Luke Weaver. Mason Miller's going to strike a lot of guys out. He's going to do it in a flashy way. I think he's good. I think he's a good bet to continue to being pretty good. But I don't think that's anything special. I think you could do better than that. And that's just kind of how relievers work, right? I mean, he strikes out a million guys, but he, walks some guys. And that just is enough to allow some runs to go by. So no, I wouldn't give up anything significant for it. If he's available for relatively cheap, like sure, we can talk about it, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's a star for Oakland. I think Oakland's very short on stars right now. And I think if they were going to trade him, if they were that worried about the injury, they would have traded him at the trade deadline.
All right, here's one other name that people are talking about, Cody Bellinger. I think they're talking about.
Yeah, it's a crazy one.
Yeah. So, listen, last year I wrote an article. Cody was the guy to get. I wanted him to play center field. I wanted him to be the guy that could play first base if Anthony Rizzo couldn't. And, he's a left-handed hitter. He's got a lot of pop. He hasn't been the same player he was when he was with the Dodgers, but he hasn't been the terrible player he was for those couple of years either. And he would give the Yankees some depth. He can play outfield. He can play first base. Maybe. Does Cody Bellinger make any sense for the Yankees?
I don't think so. I'm looking at a StatCast page right now, and it's kind of bad. He's got a 29th percentile expected WOBA. He, bad kind of basically everything. Bad at barreling the ball, hitting the ball hard. Last year he was a little bit better than this, but not that much better than this. I don't know. I think that Cody Bellinger is kind of still in this kind of state where he's this very talented player who's playing well below his talent. And it's been a couple of years now. He's getting older. It's been 3 years now. I don't know. I think the Yankees could use a lefty. I think he's got a pull swing that'd be nice for Yankee Stadium. Like that, all of the same logic that, we talked about a year ago about the Yankees maybe should sign Bellinger still stands. And if you lose Soto, you are going to have trouble finding lefty hitters. Pretty much everybody available in the free agent and trade market are righty hitters or switch hitters. And, the Yankees, I think, they got a little too lefty last year, but I think that I think it'd be a step back to have, 6 righties, 7 righties in the lineup. So I think,
absolutely.
He's one of those players. I haven't looked at his contract. I don't think it's too crazy. And so if you can get him, if you don't get Soto, you have some money to spend. It's not going to be that expensive. there are worse options out there. But I don't think he's my plan A. Like I would rather have an outfield of Chisholm, Dominguez, and Judge than have Bellinger in there. So is he a first baseman? Like I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. That said, he's better than a lot of the stopgaps that we've seen over the years. I'd rather have Bellinger than another Isaiah Kiner-Falefa or Oswaldo Cabrera outfielder, right? Like there's a way to. Trent Grisham, right? He's an expensive. He's overpriced, which is why he's available. But he is not bad. He is playable. And so if you told me he's free, right? Like the Cubs will just give him to us if we just take his salary, or you trade Marcus Stroman to the Cubs.
I was going to say, what about a Stroman for Bellinger trade?
I do that, but that is, that's about as much as you would. I'm not sure if I do much beyond that.
Now, you mentioned the Yankees were a little too lefty last year, so let me push back on that a little bit. I think they were a little too mediocre to poor lefty hitters rather than a little too lefty.
Well, a couple
Austin
of
Wells didn't hit after September, and Jazz Chisholm.
Wells also didn't hit lefties when he was hitting. Oswaldo Cabrera, right, was really good against righties. Even Soto was a lot better against righties than against lefties. And Chisholm, right, also much better against righties than lefties.
It was just that they didn't hit lefties too lefty. It's that they didn't have lefties who could hit left-handed pitching well.
Right. Well, they had a weakness, and so I think that I think that they in a perfect world last year they would have had one more really good righty, someone who could hit left-handed pitching pretty well. I think that this year, the danger is that you add, say, a Bregman and a Walker, both righties. And all of a sudden, your top of the lineup is, I don't even know who's in a Bregman and Walker world, who's your leadoff guy, but your leadoff guy, and then your one lefty, Jazz Chisholm, and then Aaron Judge, and then like four righties, right? Or Austin Wells is in there, so right? Like there's a worry. Dominguez is a switch hitter who's a much better hitter as a lefty. So I guess Dominguez is a lefty right there effectively. Yeah, I think that if Soto leaves, I'd like to add a lefty. Right, I'd like to replace Rizzo with a righty. I think that's fine. I'd like to replace Verdugo with a righty. But I think that the Yankees don't want to go back to 2 years ago when they had no lefties. That's kind of my concern. So, Bellinger's a lefty. He's available. There aren't a lot of other lefties available other than Soto. And so if you lose out on Soto, maybe he's a good plan B.
How long do you think the Soto thing's going to go?
I don't think too long. He's taking offers now, right? Like I think so. There's the reason why Soto would hold out is if he didn't get the offer he wanted. Right. If no one was willing to give him $600 million, he might wait for some owner to cave. That does not sound. It sounds like it's the opposite. That teams are going to be falling over themselves to give him a massive offer, in part because they know that the Mets are going to give him a massive offer, and so let's just start the bidding high. And in part because he's not flawed, he's worth it. The only I see this from fans a lot. Like the only big time free agents who drew it out, like who were like at Soto's level, were Machado and Harper. And Harper that year was coming off a down year. He wanted to get paid basically $400 million and didn't get it. No one was out there willing to offer that kind of money. There's been some kind of allegations of collusion during that offseason that the owners kind of got together and said, we're not going to pay Machado and Harper, oodles of money. I don't know how that really worked, but I know that there was good reason not to sign Harper at the time to that kind of big contract, similar with Machado. So both of them signed pretty late, kind of close to spring training. And then last year you had the Boris Four, who all signed pretty late, in part because they were just asking for too much money. Like none of them were as good as they were asking for. Matt Chapman actually ended up getting basically the contract he was looking for from the Giants. But besides him, I mean, teams look pretty smart for not signing Snell, Montgomery, and I forget who the fourth one was, Bellinger, to $200 million contracts like they were asking for. I mean, Montgomery was asking for a $150 million contract. That would have been a disaster. No way that happens. I don't think that's the case with Soto. I think that he's going to be the first major free agent to sign because everyone else is waiting on him. And he has no reason to wait other than waiting for offers to come in. There might be a bidding period, but I think these things get settled pretty quickly. He's met with all the teams. Teams are submitting their offers. It's just a numbers game now, right? What does he want? Does he want to play with a certain team? What number does he want to get? How much does he care about money at a certain point? That's what we're dealing with. I think he's going to sign like next week. Right.
Really?
Like, I think he's getting, well, the reporting is the offers are going in now. Boris has asked for offers. And so there's going to be offers. There's going to be Thanksgiving. He's going to sit on the offers and think about it. Maybe there'll be a bidding war early next week, but next week's the winter meetings. That's when these big deals happen. Judge was a winter meetings guy. Cole was a winter meetings guy. Teixeira was a winter meetings guy, right? You just go down the list. Sabathia. I think that's what we're looking at right now. And so I think this is coming to an end soon, and then the market can move on. We saw one major signing this week. You say Kikuchi, but that's a major signing, right? Kikuchi is a 4 ERA guy right now. So like it's not like Corbin Burns is gonna run out of patience and sign his big contract waiting for Soto. No, like all these teams that don't get Soto got money to spend, and those other free agents are going to wait on him. There's no cost to waiting. Just got to be patient. I know I want baseball news too. I would love to talk about something on this show that happened. I want to talk about something on my podcast that happened. And we're just talking about hypotheticals now. It's going to happen. It's not a big deal. Like this is normal. We're talking about a $600 million deal. It's not going to happen in a day. That's just kind of how these things work.
You're actually, your timeline seems quicker than what I thought. I was thinking, I was going to ask you, do you think it'll happen by Christmas, which is a month away? So if you're saying next week, that's amazing to me.
This is the normal free agent timeline. Like the winter meetings is when people sign.
Yeah, I know. But usually these big guys, sometimes it seems to drag out a little more. When, Judge was going to be a Yankee.
Who's dragged out? Like no one has. Like it was Machado and Harper. That's it.
Oh, and then last year, those guys, but they were asking too much money.
Ohtani signed at the winter meetings last year. Yamamoto waited a couple of weeks, but there was also a posting system there, and I don't think this is a problem. Like I think this is just a little bit of impatience. We got it.
I'm not. That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised. I'm the opposite of impatient on this one. I'm too patient. I was going to ask you, do you give them a deadline? Like if you don't sign by Christmas, we're moving on to something else. But you're saying it's going to happen well before then. So that's exciting.
I think we're going to know which team Soto's on by the couple of days after the winter meetings. That's the latest you get. Winter meetings are the week after Thanksgiving. They usually leave on Thursday, right? I think Judge and Cole both signed like that Friday or Saturday, something like that. It was right afterwards.
Amazing. Oh, I hope so. That'll be fun. So, the Yankees, you wrote a great article about the minor leagues. I want to dive into that a little bit. The minor leagues weren't great. A lot of the guys really disappointed. Yeah. The Yankees, you mentioned, have a lot of depth at catcher, which is interesting. But the guy I want to focus on first is Spencer Jones. There are people that look at his numbers and say a lot of the numbers actually went up from year to year from his previous year, maybe his slugging percentage, maybe extra base hits and things like that. But I don't know. He struck out 400,000 times or so in Double A.
He set the Yankees minor league strikeout record.
At one point, do you say like, all right, it's becoming problematic? Now, obviously, you're not just going to give up on the guy, but there are those that think that he's going to be an impact player, possibly keep the Yankee outfield warm for Spencer Jones in 2025. And I don't see it at all. Do you see a way other than a miracle and he turns his whole career around that Spencer Jones, a guy who struck out 200 times in Double A, has any chance right now of being a major leaguer?
I think he has a very strong chance of being a major leaguer.
No,
the question is how good of a major leaguer.
Not in 2025. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, maybe he gets called up mid-season. He struck out 37% of the time. He already had a bad strikeout problem. He was a 28% strikeout guy before this year. 37% this year. That is bad in Double A. His second real stint in Double A. He played about half a season there previously. Now, here is the upside. He's 23 years old. I mean, this was his age 23 season. Other parts of his game are strong. So he's a true plus center fielder, right? He's not even like a Judge, big guy who can run in the outfield. Like, he's a fast player. He's good at stealing bases. He puts up big exit velocities. One of the reasons why his numbers weren't bad, despite the 37% strikeout rate, is because he hits the ball hard, right? And we've seen that with Sstn and Judge, that they can get away with a lot of strikeouts. They just can't get away with that many strikeouts, right? 37% is a big number. If he's a 28% strikeout player, well, then he could be a 230, 240 hitter with some power and good defense and walks and, and stolen bases. Like, that's a pretty valuable player.
Is that Joey Gallo?
Joey Gallo was worse than that. He was at like 37, 38, right? He was a high strikeout player. That's like Adam Dunn. I think about Adam Dunn, right? Or modern Giancarlo Stanton, right? Modern Giancarlo Stanton, 30%. And Stan doesn't take a lot of walks and, doesn't contribute on defense. So there's a potential major league player there. The problem is the ceiling is low, right? I mean, if you're going to strike out 30% of the time, unless you're Aaron Judge, like, it's very, very hard to be all that great. I think that he's still a good prospect. He is still young, right? 23 years old for a big, tall guy like him who went to college is not that old. Aaron Judge was still in Double-A when he was 23. Now, Aaron Judge was better at Double-A than Spencer Jones, struck out less, had better numbers, but had not yet really put it all together. He was not the number one prospect in the Yankee system when he was called up. In fact, Gary Sanchez and Tyler Austin were much better prospects when Judge was called up, and he broke out in the majors. So, I think that we shouldn't be too down on Jones. He's still a top 100 prospect, but I don't think he's an elite prospect. He's not Jackson Holiday, right? That's not the way I would think about him.
What players in the major leagues, if a team called you up and said, all right, we want Spencer Jones, name a couple of guys who you'd be willing to give up Spencer Jones to get?
It's a good question. I'll tell you who I wouldn't, right? So one person I wanted to trade for was Eugenio Suarez. 1-year deal, 33-year-old third baseman, really good upgrade for the Yankees. I like him a lot. Guys like Yandy Diaz, like those types of guys I would not trade Spencer Jones for. But we also look at, say, for example, Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm, the best prospect in that deal was a guy named Augustin Ramirez, who's a far worse prospect than Spencer Jones. Chisholm is a pretty good player. He's an average hitter, above average defender, pretty young, under team control for a few more years. Did not require Spencer Jones to get. So now, you move it up a little bit there. Jonathan India did not require a Spencer Jones level prospect to get. He was basically required like a Nestor Cortez level trade. So, I can't think of anybody just off the top of my head, but you'd be talking about a pretty good player. For example, Alec Bohm is being made available by the Phillies. Third baseman, I think would work pretty well for the Yankees. He's not a Spencer Jones level guy. Luis Robert in the White Sox, maybe. It's kind of hard to kind of think of someone who's tradable. But he was a White Sox. Everybody had a bad year. Robert, you might be able to get for cheaper than Spencer Jones, right? Like there are definitely, I don't think you should hold on to him very preciously. I think if, for example, Juan Soto were available again, Spencer Jones could be a part of that package very reasonably. But even Juan Soto didn't require Spencer Jones. They sent lesser guys over. So it would have to be a pretty good prospect. And right now, just finding one of those guys who's available is kind of tough.
Would you argue that Michael King is better than Spencer Jones, worth more?
Not when he was traded.
You don't think so?
No, I think that
bullpen arm who pitched as a starter for a month and showed some promise. No.
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't think that Michael King. I think that the Padres would have rather had Jones than King.
Interesting.
Right, in a vacuum, not knowing their current roster, right? So yeah, I think that's what a top prospect is, and Jones is. He's a high ceiling prospect with some flaws. And I think that's pretty valuable. I don't know which young players are going to be available. Is there a team that has 2 second basemen? I don't know. But that's the kind of situation where you would trade a top prospect like Jones. The thing about top prospects is that most of them don't work out, but when they do, they're very valuable. So Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe, Luis Hill, like those guys now have immense value to the Yankees. And if one out of three guys becomes that, it's really worth it. And you get those guys for a long time at a very low price in their prime. Whereas, if you traded Spencer Jones for somebody who has 2 years left on their, of team control, that they're more expensive and they're gone soon. And so you're willing to take a bet on a guy like Jones, even if 2 out of 3 times it's probably not going to work out. 1 out of 3 times you got a long-term outfielder.
Interesting. A 33% success rate, right? Makes sense. All right. So what else did you notice when you did your analysis of the Yankee minor leagues? The Yankees
so it's bad.
Top shortstops, right? You were talking about?
Yeah. So the Yankees had 2 shortstops that I think if you were let me back up even more. The Yankees were considered a top 10 farm system heading into the season. So Baseball Prospectus, I think, ranked them 7th. I think Baseball America ranked them top 10. They were considered to have a lot of talent in the system. Some of that was kind of high-level guys that we saw near the majors, like we saw with Spencer Jones, with Ben Rice, Austin Wells. Those guys were considered pretty good. Some of it, and I think, by the way, I might be losing my headphones soon, so this could be a problem, Paul, just to tell you. Some of it—
Is it falling out of your ears?
I just got the do-do-do-do as my battery's dying, and I don't have a wired pair of headphones anywhere near me. So we'll see how long this lasts. So those guys near the majors were part of that, but also there was a lot of really talented players low down in the minors, particularly Roderick Arias and George Lombard Jr., both shortstops. Lombard was a first-round pick. Arias was a top international signing. And they were both 19 years old. And I think the hope was that those guys would become the next 2 big Yankee prospects. Maybe they're both considered really good shortstops, fast, had lots of bat potential, and they both had bad years. Now, they had bad years as 19-year-olds. Lombard was a 19-year-old who made it to high A, which is not nothing. But they weren't good. Like Lombard had like a 650-something OPS. Arias had a 728 OPS. And you can't really— there's not really like a first, second half story for either of them. They just weren't that good. I don't know how their defense is. I don't know if there's any other redeeming things we're going to get out of the offseason scouting reports. But those were the guys that you were hoping would be kind of the next Spencer Jones, right? The next generation of top prospects. And they had bad years. They're still prospects. Arias might even end up as a top 100 prospect this year, right? I think that's very possible. Lombard was a very talented high school first-round pick. It's really hard to adjust to the minors right now. The minors are tougher than they've ever been. There's a lot of velocity down in the low minors. There's a lot of spin. There's a lot of players who are much older than they used to be. One thing about the minors have compressed a little bit. Major League Baseball is reportedly thinking of compressing this even more. But it used to be the case that a high schooler would play against a short season ball. Or some of the top college players are being short season, like the Penn State League. And then you would have the high school guys down in low A. Now, a lot of those are being jammed into those low minors. And the quality is just skyrocketed. It's gone up. And I think it's harder than ever to kind of be a high school guy. The Yankees actually didn't bring a lot of their Dominican players over, kind of that you expected them to bring over. And I wonder, part of that might just be that they don't have space for them on the teams. But I think part of that is that they didn't think they were ready because there's just so much good pitching out there. And I think that you just saw Arias and Lombard just not stack up against the pitching. Maybe next year they'll break out. They'll play well against the pitching. Volpe was pretty bad his first season in the minors, went away for the pandemic, came back a completely different hitter. So it's not unreasonable. They're still talented. They were healthy all season, which is not nothing. But they had bad seasons, and they are not going to be top prospects this year. If they're top 100, it's going to be squeaking in at the very end. Not good. The worst news is that every single pitcher in the organization was awful, pretty much.
Except
Fangraphs ranked except for Luis Hill. So Fangraphs ranked, I think, 20 pitchers in their top 36. And the only one that had a healthy, good season, so was effective, was good, pitched basically the whole season, was Hill. All of the rest either didn't pitch because of an injury we don't know much about. We have a lot of reporting on some of these guys. Were bad, or basically were absent. Nothing happened. We don't know anything about what happened, what they did. They were working out at the complex all year. That's bad. The Yankees had a couple of pitchers who had kind of big breakout seasons. You always do with a big farm system. but they were like low stuff college guys like Zach Messinger, throws 92, went to a big program, has a bag of tricks up his sleeve, probably is a major league starter, but in the same way that like Johnny Brito was. I don't think there's a lot of hope that those guys will be really good. And the Yankees have brought a lot of those guys in, and they've been successful. Drew Thorpe was another one. The Yankees had a couple of other this year. Ben Shields was one this year. But that's not really what you want out of this system. This was a talented farm system. You wanted guys coming out throwing 99 and being really good. And other teams are churning those guys out. They all something bad happened basically, and the Yankees have had development problems, and they've frankly had those for a couple of years now. They've traded away a lot of guys who are kind of C+ pitchers, the JP Searses of the world, and haven't developed.
Really made an impact anywhere else, right?
No, I mean, JP Sears has been fine. There's a couple of other pitchers that, you probably would like back in a vacuum, but aren't.
Garrett Whitlock, really a couple of those types of guys that they lost.
Yeah, I mean, Whitlock was a Rule 5 pick, right? It was a guy that they just they didn't have a spot for. There's a guy they traded to, I think, the Mets. That's there's a few of those guys running around, but honestly, the Yankee farm system has not looked great lately. If you look at kind of what they've produced, they've done well in the majors with like Jake Cousins types. That's not the farm system, right? Those are guys that were signed and then went to AAA and then were called up. They have 6 starters, right? One of those is Clark Schmidt, been around for a while, finally kind of establishing himself. One of them is Nestor Cortez, who was just kind of a guy who came out of nowhere. One of those kind of low stuff, advanced guys. I don't think he went to college, but one of those low stuff guys, kind of like Shields and some of the others. So, there's something going on there. And I think that, Matt Blake is a very good pitching coach, but I think that the evidence is suggesting right now that the Yankees starting pitching in particular development is kind of bad. They've gotten a lot of guys that the scouting reports pop on. They say, man, this guy's great. He's 6'8" and he's throwing 98 and he's got a great curveball, whatever, right? But they just don't do it in games. They don't stay healthy. My theory, and I have nothing to back this up other than just guesswork, is that the Yankees are kind of gassing these guys up too much, right? They're teaching them to throw 98 with spin, and it's just not working out. Like either that's not translating into games, or they're getting injured. Their control is bad. They don't have a full arsenal. Like I think that the Yankees are doing something wrong, because other teams are being much more successful at just finding guys who throw 96. And the Yankees should be able to push some of those guys out of their farm system pretty regularly, and they don't. And it's not just because they trade a bunch of guys away. I mean, the only guy really that you missed that they traded away was King. And he was, 2 years from free agency. He's a free agent after this season. So it's concerning. We used to think that this was a strength of the Yankees, pitching development. They're bad at hitting, and they could do pitching. And, coming into this season, there's all these guys, this long list of guys. Chase Hampton is an example. Big guy, broke out, killer stuff, great spin, cool, big scouting reports. And he got injured, and he missed most of the season. Clayton Beeter, right, was injured most of the season, and maybe he'll be a reliever next year or something. The graveyard's pretty deep, and I think it's about time to start asking, is this just bad luck? Is this just how pitching development is today, or is it worse? Right? Is this the Yankees screwing this up?
Yeah, these are great questions. EJ, before your ears go, Thanksgiving's coming on Thursday. I am thankful for you. I'm thankful that we can do this every week and talk baseball. What about the Yankees makes you thankful? What
I'm thankful for Aaron freaking Judge. Come on, right. I think because of the postseason, because of the way that the Yankees lost in the World Series, Aaron Judge has had the best right-handed hitting season ever. No one's ever been better than Aaron Judge was this year. And I just don't think we appreciate it enough. I don't think that Yankee fans are I get to watch every day the best right-handed hitter ever, every single day, right? That is incredible. He is a Yankee for life. He is still at the top of his game. He is earning every dollar of that giant contract. He played center field for a season. He stole bases in the playoffs. Like, I am very thankful for Aaron Judge, and I think we should all like. I think we need to stop and smell the roses, because he's not going to be this good forever. He's going to get old.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does, and I think we're watching a legend in the way that, like, more than when we watched Jeter, more than when maybe Rivera, a different kind of legend, right? But Judge is better than those guys ever were, by far, right? Jeter did not sniff a 10-win season, and Jeter was really, really good. Aaron Judge won the MVP. Congratulations to Judge. I think he's the favorite to win the MVP next year. I think he'd be dumb to pick anybody else.
And you could argue that he should have won it in 2017, right? When they gave it to Altuve.
Yep.
And you could argue that if he doesn't go into a immovable wall in LA, he wins it in 23. So
his numbers in 23 when he got hurt were as good as they were this year, right? They were just incredible.
So this is a guy that really, circumstances being different, won a wall. That's not, that's a fluke injury. I've criticized Judge in the past for not being available, but he's been available the last couple of years, minus a wall that didn't move, that shouldn't have been like that. And or a wall that did move, I guess, right? Is what happened. And a year where he should have been chosen and he wasn't. This is a guy who's really got 4 MVP seasons.
Yeah, I want to check here. I don't think Judge has played a minor league rehab game in like forever. Yeah, he hasn't played a minor league. He played 5 minor league rehab games in 2019, and that's it. Has not been a AAA since being called up, other than those 5 games in 2019. Right? He has been on the field, and I think
2020 he wasn't. 2020 he wasn't.
You're right, but I guess he didn't play in minor league rehab games because he got injured. He got like a hamstring injury or something. It's a 60-game season, right? So
and it was a
one hamstring injury, you're done.
And the thing about 2020 was he would have been out if the season had started on time. He would have been out for the whole first half. He was injured. He comes back late.
Judge had a problem where he would dive in the outfield, get hurt, and he basically stopped going all out, which is fine. Like, I'm glad he did that. Like, don't mess with this. Like, he was an 11-win player last year. I don't care if he dives. But that's also why he should be playing right field, right? He was not a good center fielder. He moved there when the Yankees needed him to, but he was a bad center fielder. And I think that I want Juan Soto to sign with the Yankees, but I think there is a silver lining if he doesn't, that you get to put Judge back in his natural position, the small right field, with a strong arm, one of the best arms in the outfield in baseball, and he gets to be an asset there. He doesn't have to dive nearly as much, and that is a better fit than Judge and Soto. Whereas one of those guys would have to move to first base, I think, pretty quickly at some point. Or I don't know if Judge plays left field, or that's more difficult in Yankee Stadium. So I think there's a silver lining there. I still think we're better off if Soto signs, but I think that's part of it. And I think if Judge goes back to being a plus defensive contributor, then the sky's the limit. I mean, he hit like a 12 or 13 win player if he was not a below average center fielder. If he was an average center fielder, he's even better. So yeah, I'm thankful for Aaron Judge. We should all be very thankful for Aaron Judge. I'm going to tell my kid about Aaron Judge one day, and I'm excited for that.
I'm looking up the single season leaders in WAR.
There's some really early ones, and there's some like pitchers through 60 starts a year.
A lot of pitchers. Yeah, I'm trying to see somebody. Babe Ruth would be 14.1 in 1923.
I mean, of modern players, it's
Dwight Gooden 13. I haven't seen Bonds' name yet.
So I mean, if I go, I'm going to go to Fangraphs right
Barry
now.
Bonds 11.9. So if you're
going
doing like a 13-win season.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a post about this years ago. And I don't think you can just look at, like, if you want to say what's the best season of all time, I don't think it's appropriate just to say, like, what's the highest WAR. Highest WAR is 2002 Barry Bonds, right? Best of all time. In fact, that's even better than the 2001 Barry Bonds when he hit 70 home runs. Judge is fourth in that.
I don't see Barry Bonds on the list.
I'll send you a link right here in the private chat. I'm looking at Fangraphs.
Oh, all right. You're looking at Fangraphs. I'm looking at Baseball Reference.
And I cut this off in 1967. So this is kind of the late expansion era. So Barry Bonds and other players, Babe Ruth is another example. They had put up these really high win totals when it was much easier to stand out from the crowd. So in Babe Ruth's day, that's because like half of the league weren't really professionals, right? That you're talking about an all-white league that some players were elite athletes and some players were just not. And so, someone who's elite like Babe Ruth, and you can just look at all sorts of players like Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, players during that period, they stood out. The really good ones were just incredible. They put up 800 slugging percentages, stats we don't see anymore. Ted Williams even in the 50s, just stats that just are impossible today. Barry Bonds was able to stand out because during his time, if you took steroids, you could stand out from the crowd. And we saw some really outlier seasons during that time from people who use steroids, like McGwire, right? That's something that you don't see anymore. Today, if you look at the variance between players, it's much tighter. That is, many, many fewer players are really kind of out there on the fringes, being really, really bad or really, really good. And so if you adjust, I did this for his 2022 season. I haven't done this for 2024. If you adjust,
I remember the article,
his season, right, for this, he's the best ever, right? He had his 2022 season was the best ever, and I think 2024 is going to go down as better than that. What he is doing is absolutely magical. He is doing essentially, the way I think about this is like Barry Bonds took a bunch of steroids, turned himself into a home run monster, right? And took all of his natural skills and then added a ton of strength, and bam, right? He became, had the best run of any baseball player ever. Aaron Judge is like Barry Bonds without the steroids. He doesn't need the steroids. He's Aaron Judge. He's gigantic, right? And so he can do this because he's got the natural strength of Barry Bonds and all of the other advantages, right? All of the other skills that made Bonds Bonds, but he doesn't need steroids to do it, which means that I think he could keep it up. Like Bonds did this till he was 40 because he was so big and so strong and so good at hitting that you couldn't beat him. And I don't think that Judge has Bonds' eye. I don't think Bonds was superhuman. He was the best hitter of all time. By the way, there's a great video around YouTube somewhere of Bonds and Maddox both dissecting a series of at-bats against each other. So Maddox going, I'm going to throw him this next. I'm going to throw him that next. And it was all right. And Bonds going, well, Maddox is going to throw me this next. And so I'm going to do, it was incredible to watch. It was from a year ago. So recent stuff. But like Bonds I don't think Aaron Judge has Bonds level all-time great, but he might have Hank Aaron level skills. Right. And then you add that when you're 6'7", 285 and athletic, you add that on top of those skills. And you got a player who's just this good. I mean, for example, Bobby Witt Jr. just had a 10 win season. I'm not betting on him doing that again. Right. I mean, players will occasionally have crazy seasons like that. Bryce Harper.
Well, on your chart, you have guys like Yaz in 67 had 11 wins. Joe Morgan. Yeah. Cal Ripken. You don't see this. Then you see Bobby Witt. You don't see a lot of names getting repeated. The names that get repeated are Bonds, Judge, Trout, A-Rod. I only see him once so far. Ricky Henderson gets Ripken got a couple. There's a couple.
Lots of these guys going to have one really incredible season. Yeah, right? It is like I look at Adrian Beltre, 2004, one of the great seasons of all time. Adrian Beltre was a really good baseball player. He's a Hall of Famer. Never came close to that again. Judge has now done it 2 seasons and then the half season where the only reason he didn't do it is because he ran into a wall. Not his fault. Freak injury. And I see no reason why he can't do it again. I mean, I think eventually he's going to slow down and I don't know, the playoffs have me a little bit worried. But I wonder if he was injured, frankly, in the playoffs. But other than that, Aaron Judge, like he's going to go down. Aaron Judge could go down as the best Yankee ever, or best Yankee since Babe Ruth.
All right, so here's the final question.
Mm-hmm.
We only have a couple moments, but here's your final question. If Aaron Judge has 0 World Series rings, is there an argument where you can propel him over DiMaggio, Ruth, Gehrig, and Mantle?
I have trouble with all those guys except for maybe Mantle, just because of the era they played in. Right? It's not the same competitiveness. I think the question is really Jeter, Rivera, Judge. Right? Which of those guys? How do those guys compare? And I think that let's assume Judge does this for a long time and doesn't win any World Series. Right now, his career numbers don't compare to Jeter because Jeter did it for longer. Right? Judge was a late bloomer. Jeter was already like a 4-time World Series winner by the time he was 25. Judge came up at 25. Judge broke out at 29 or whatever however old he was in 2022. He was really good before that, but he was otherworldly beginning then. So let's assume he does this for another 3-4 seasons, right? He puts up another 40 wins in the next 4 seasons. That would put him above Jeter in career wins and would make him the best peak player other than Bonds ever. I think he goes down in Yankee history above those guys, Jeter and Rivera. I think he's just that much better.
I'm going to give you
Rivera's hard because Rivera is the best reliever ever by far, but he's a reliever, right? So it's hard. It's kind of hard. Like no one will ever match Rivera's like postseason record, the greatest feat in baseball history, right? I mean, a .8 ERA in 150 postseason innings.
I'm going to give you a trivia question right now.
Sure. Top
Yankees in games pitched. Number 1 is this you'll Rivera. Get. Number 2.
In games pitched, as in total number of appearances?
Correct.
It's going to be someone who's been on the team. Give me a clue.
He was a relief pitcher, but he started off as a starting pitcher, and he's in an era just before, actually after him. But he's from an era. What's that?
Fingers.
No, Yankees.
Oh, I know there was another top reliever that they signed.
Through a no-hitter once against the Red Sox on July 4th.
As a reliever?
No, as a starter. He came up as a starter. Then the Yankees moved him to the bullpen.
I don't know.
This is Dave Righetti.
Oh, Righetti. Okay, sure.
All right, but watch this. This is what's going to blow your mind. Let me pull this.
Aroldis Chapman.
Back up. No, it's actually not. Oh, brother, where'd it go? Where'd my article go? Oh, I lost it. This is what happens. Oh, here it is. When you minimize stuff. You ready? This is crazy. Number 3 all-time Yankee games pitched, David Robertson.
Wow, really interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to have Robertson back. Robertson, I believe, the last Yankee still playing to
from
pitch in
the
Yankee
World
Stadium.
Series team.
No, pitch in the old Yankee Stadium.
Interesting. But this is what's going to blow you away. Dave Righetti pitched in 522 games as a Yankee. 522 games. You want to guess how many games Mariano pitched?
He probably pitched in 1,200.
Yeah, 1,115. The number 2 guy is 522. He's doubled him.
Relievers don't last that long. It is unheard of. Think about all the relievers who were as good as Rivera when they were younger, right? You were saying, man, this guy could be the next Rivera. Josh Hader, Jonathan Papelbon, Kenley Jansen. You just go down the list. I mean, Devin Williams for the Brewers, and these guys were elite for a minute. Zach Britton, and they just didn't have the length. And Rivera did it consistently every year. You know, it's the marvelous thing about Rivera is that his cutter, as it slowed down, it got more movement. and he just learned how to basically make it harder to hit. And I think he got better as he got older. I think he was better when he was throwing 93 than when he was throwing 96, because he got more movement out of the cutter, and he just had pinpoint control and nerves of steel. Rivera is the clearest best X ever in baseball, right? There's arguments for everyone else. Who's the best starter? Who's the best right fielder? Whatever, right? Like, lots of arguments there. There is no argument. Mariano Rivera is the best relief pitcher of all time, and no one else is close. I'm thankful that I got to grow up as a kid watching Mariano. It was my favorite player as a kid. I got to watch Mariano Rivera play, and I think if you gave him a glove, he could probably still get batters out in the majors.
I bet you're right. I was just going to say that. All right, EJ, we're at the top of the hour. I wish you and your family a happy and wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you, sir. And to all the people watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for going to start spreading the news, and happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you here next week. And maybe Juan Soto will give us a Thanksgiving present and sign on Thanksgiving. Have yourselves I doubt it, but have yourselves a wonderful day.